Hundreds of wildfires are burning.
Be the first to know what's going on and what that means for you and for Canadians.
This situation has changed very quickly.
Helping make sense of the world when it matters most. Stay in the know. CBC News.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show? Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC Radio anytime, anywhere. Download the CBC Listen app.
This is CBC News. At 12 o'clock, we're at minus 19 with sunny skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon, I'm Matt Humphrey. Winnipeg police call the past week of the holiday check stop alarming. 35 drivers were found to be impaired. 2 drivers were found passed out behind the wheel. Another continued driving even after sideswiping multiple parked cars. 1 tested positive for cocaine. And police say they found 1 impaired driver with a 5-year-old child in the back seat. Police posted the numbers on social media, calling on Winnipeggers to do better. The City of Winnipeg's most expensive construction project has been given a big boost in federal funding. The fall economic statement included $150 million for the North End sewage treatment plant. Cost estimates on the project have risen by hundreds of millions of dollars. Mayor Scott Gillingham has been calling on the federal and provincial governments to help.
That will help us significantly. It doesn't answer all of the questions and it doesn't fully fund the remainder of the North End plant, but it's progress, and I welcome the progress.
The provincial government has promised $30 million to help pay for construction on the second phase of the project. The budget for that phase of the plant recently rose by nearly $500 million. The total project is estimated to cost $3 billion. The Winnipeg Police Board is taking more time to choose a new chief for the Winnipeg Police Service. Earlier this month, Police Board Chair Marcus Chambers said a candidate has been selected and will be made public this month. Today, Chambers says the board has not made a decision. Mayor Scott Gillingham, who also sits on the board, says the recruitment process is still underway. The new chief will replace Danny Smythe, who headed up the police service from 2016 until this September. 2 days after the resignation of Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, and we've yet to hear publicly from Justin Trudeau, with the Prime Minister now cancelling all of his end-of-year interviews with the major news outlets, it doesn't appear we'll be hearing from him anytime soon. In the meantime, he's left weighing his options. Janice McGregor has the latest.
Being Prime Minister is a full-time, all-in job. Stepping down is far more complicated for a head of government than an opposition leader. Do you go immediately? Would that risk creating some chaos? Or do you signal a date for your eventual exit and allow for an orderly transition to be mapped out? Until that plan is ready, he has to outwardly look like a guy who's still in the game and fighting. If Justin Trudeau is staying on as Prime Minister, he needs a new team that's prepared to take the fight to the Conservatives in the next election. So we'll see if a cabinet shuffle is still in the cards before the end of this week. Regardless of who's in or out, based on what the opposition leaders have said, this Parliament's days are numbered. The next time a confidence vote is held, if Justin Trudeau is still leader, New Democrats are no longer prepared to prop the Liberals up. So the odds for a spring election have risen. Janice McGregor, CBC News, Ottawa.
Meanwhile, a U of M political scientist says Trudeau risks becoming a political ghost inside and outside of Canada. Professor Paul Thomas says Trudeau should step down and has lost credibility. And he says that makes it more difficult to negotiate with the incoming U.S. Trump administration. He says the premiers are trying to fill the void in the meantime, but are inconsistent.
Some days they sound like they've got their act together. Other days it sounds like they're each pursuing their own fundamental economic and political interests. So I don't know how long a sort of Team Canada approach led by the provincial premiers would hold together.
Thomas says Trudeau may have missed the opportunity to leave gracefully. Police in Montreal are investigating a fire targeting a synagogue. Someone threw a Molotov cocktail at the Beth Tikva synagogue just before 3 o'clock this morning. Officers put out the fire when they arrived. Police say there was damage to the front door and to a window, but no one was injured. That same synagogue was firebombed just over a year ago. No one has been charged or arrested in connection with that attack. The hustle and bustle of holiday shopping at Brandon's largest shopping center has died down a bit. A small fire inside a store Monday morning left smoke and water damage. 12 businesses inside the Shoppers Mall have had to close. The setup for photos with Santa Claus is also damaged. Mall marketing manager Megan Anderson says it won't reopen this holiday season.
I'm pretty devastated for my stores that have to close. Especially the ones that have told me that they've had to close indefinitely. I know myself, I had to close my Santa set. We're no longer offering Santa photos because of this, because the scent sustained some damage. So it's pretty sad, not what you want at Christmas time at all.
It's not known when businesses in Brandon's Shoppers Mall will reopen. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. And that is your CBC News from Winnipeg. For news anytime, you can head to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba, or you can use the CBC News app. Taking a look at the Manitoba forecast, in Winnipeg, sunny today with a high around -21, and we have a wind chill, making it feel colder at times, and we are expecting snow tonight again. Brandon, mainly cloudy, a high of -19 with wind from the east. In Dauphin, sunshine, a high around -20. Flin Flon, sunny, a high of -23. Thompson, mainly sunny and a high of -22. And on the bay in Churchill, sunshine with wind from the west, a strong wind at times, a high of -23 with wind chill. You're listening to CBC.
Good afternoon and welcome to Radio Noon. I'm Laurie Hoogstraten. Nice day out there if you like it clear and cold. We're hoping for -19. It's -21 right now. And on the show today, should Trudeau go? Following a tumultuous week in Canadian politics, we want to hear your thoughts. Is it time for Justin Trudeau to resign? What do you think? Give us a call and share your thoughts after the 12:30 news, 204-780-0893. And clarity around the rules on who catches critters. We'll catch up on some of the issues addressed in a proposed animal control bylaw in Steinbach. That's coming up. But first, a decades-old community paper is set to close. Coming right up, one expert explains what's at stake when newspapers shutter. It's 7 minutes past 12 o'clock. After more than 6 decades in print, a northern Manitoba newspaper is folding. It will be the 32nd Manitoba paper to shut down in the past 16 years. Yesterday, the Thompson Citizen confirmed to CBC News that it was set to close. April Lindgren is with Local News Research Project. She says it's becoming increasingly more common for community newspapers to shut down. CBC's Austin Shebekayet spoke with her to learn more.
Across the country over the last decade, community newspapers have been closing or their print editions have been canceled, and there's been a real consolidation and within the sector. So we've seen 3 or 4 papers combined to into one regional publication, so communities are losing their dedicated local newspaper. And all of this, of course, is driven by the cost of producing a print publication. You know, if you think about it, printing a newspaper requires buying newsprint, having somebody do the layout for that newsprint, printing the paper, and then hauling around tons of paper and dropping it off at homes or shipping it via the mail. So that's a very costly undertaking given the comparable costs of publishing news online just digitally. When you combine that with the loss of advertising revenue, as businesses have shifted advertising to online platforms like Google and Facebook, you have rising costs and revenue challenges. And it's proven to be deadly for a lot of community papers over time. Now, I will say that a lot of times people are shrugging and saying, who cares? Because there wasn't much news in the paper anyway. So publishers have often been shooting themselves in the foot by cutting the amount of local news content that they have in their publication. So because they want to save money, so they might have fewer reporters, produce fewer stories, and become less important to the community. And that creates a vicious cycle where you have the paper becoming less and less relevant and more cutbacks until you get to the point where you might have a ghost newspaper that exists and it publishes. It has some advertising in it. It has maybe one or two stories, but it's not a news source that provides meaningful or sufficient coverage to the community. Now, I'm not sure what the situation was in this case. I'm not saying it was a ghost newspaper, but I'm just saying that if, in addition to rising newsprint costs and delivery costs and declining advertising revenue, if the paper's coverage has been diminished over time, it creates a trio of very difficult problems to overcome. There's been a net loss in Manitoba of local news sources, according to our data. So, for instance, since 2008, as of December 3rd, 31 local news outlets have closed, but only 11 have opened. So that means a net loss in terms of overall sources of news for people in the province. And I guess now we will have to change that number to 32 closings and 11 launches.
It seems like this is just like a trend across the country. What sort of losses then?
I talk about communities suffering from local news poverty. And what that means is that the local media that continue to exist can't or aren't providing people with the news that they need to navigate daily life. So what this means in practical terms is, can people find out what decisions are being made at City Council? Is anybody covering City Council? And what does it mean now that this paper isn't there? Is there less coverage of City Council? And that matters because if you want to have a say, if you're a resident in town and you want to have a say on important decisions coming before council, you need to get involved early on when there's committee hearings or the deliberations are happening. You don't want to find out about the decision to build a new road at the end, the decision to close a road at the end of your street when the signs go up saying this road is closed. You want to know about it well in advance so that you can reach out to your councillor, your municipal government, and say, listen, this is a really bad idea, and here's why. But in the absence of adequate coverage of municipal politics, for instance, people don't have access to that information. So, in this case, there's definitely one less news source available to pick up on proposals that may affect residents in the community. We also, know that local news matters because it keeps people abreast of just what's going on. So maybe they can't go to the local fireworks or the local winter festival because they're busy. But if they can see reporting and coverage of that event in the pages of the paper or online or in a radio newscast, it means that it creates a shared sense of belonging and sense of community. So the fewer opportunities you have for media to do that, the more difficult it is to maintain that sense of community. I mean, the other obvious problem is that when you lose local news sources, it creates a space for rumor and innuendo and basically making stuff up that can also create challenges for a community because people start to believe what they see on social media when there's no local reporting to make sure that information is actually basically true. So that creates all sorts of difficulties for a municipal government because the typical thing that happens is people start thinking the worst of their counselors, and there's nobody keeping an eye on them. There's no reporters around, so goodness knows what they're getting up to, and we're going to believe the worst of them all the time. So it means that municipal governments have to step up and start providing more information, figuring out on their own how to get information out to the public, because they have fewer opportunities to get that information out via the local media. And I would just say, finally, another really big concern is that we live in an era of increasing environmental and climate change and emergencies. And the local media plays a vital role in getting information to people. If there's a wildfire or a crazy storm in the winter or in the summer. And I think if there's reduced capacity to reach people in that way, that too is something to be concerned about.
April Lindgren co-leads the Local News Research Project. She's also a journalism professor at Toronto's Metropolitan University. In a statement to CBC, Provincial Culture Minister Nellie Kennedy called the closure of the Citizen a huge loss for all of northern Manitoba. She added that the NDP government is looking for ways to support local print journalism after a motion put forth to set up a nonpartisan legislature committee to help local outlets was blocked.
Manitoba's the kind of place that draws you in. Every day it's growing, it's changing. Just when you think you've got it figured out, though, there's something new to understand. I'm Marcy Marcuso, host of the CBC Daily Podcast. This is Manitoba. I've covered the news from the rail line in Churchill to the border in Emerson, and it's talking about the local stories that help us understand this place. That's what This is Manitoba is all about. Find it on CBC Listen or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
And coming up on the show today, should Trudeau go? Following a tumultuous week in Canadian politics, we want to hear your thoughts. Is it time for Justin Trudeau to resign, or what are his options? We want to hear what you think about it. Give us a call 204-780-0893. And coming up in just a minute, updating animal control. Steinbach has a list of proposed revisions that include higher fees and more pet supervision. We'll hear from a Steinbach city councillor. Taking a look at Riley Lachuk's forecast. Today, mainly sunny and cold with highs of -19. The winds aren't too bad, but I guess when it's this cold, they feel kind of bad. Northwest 10 to 20. And tonight, increasing clouds, periods of snow might get up to 2 centimeters. -22, and the temperature will actually rise through the night to -19. Thursday, still a few periods of light snow and -15. Friday, mix of sun and clouds and -18. Saturday and Sunday, mainly cloudy, few sunny breaks, -9 and -7 respectively. And some temperatures for you. In Brandon, it's -28. Churchill, also -28. Dauphin and Gimli, both -22. In the Paw, it's -26. And in Winnipeg, it is -21. Well, Steinbach has unleashed some updates to its animal control bylaws. A number of revisions, ranging from chicken control to dog park rules, have passed first reading. The council took a look at what's changed and what still needs to change when it comes to pets and wildlife in Steinbach. Outside the urban part of the city, Steinbach also includes more rural properties, so the bylaws are comprehensive. Steinbach City Councillor Jake Siemens made the motion to approve the suggested updates to the animal control bylaw. Good afternoon.
Hello.
So why is Steinbach revising its animal control bylaws?
City Council, over the years, reviews 5 or 6 bylaws a year just to update the bylaws in the past for a couple of reasons. Number one is to update them to reflect the current needs. And number two, to simplify the language and take some of the, I don't know what you call it, legalese out of it, so they're simpler and easier to understand for people who are reviewing the bylaws for whatever reason. So we look at 5 or 6 bylaws every year, and it was just the animal control bylaw it was needed to be overhauled. And so that's the biggest reason.
How long had it been since you had looked at that one, the animal control bylaw?
No, the animal control bylaw was put in place in 2010, but there's been a couple changes, and the dog park was a major one, and we put rules around the dog park, but the rules weren't stipulated in a bylaw, and so now they will be stipulated in a bylaw. In addition, we had a pit bull bylaw banning pit bulls from Steinbach from 1991. So that'll also come underneath the new bylaw. We'll draw that one in as well. And that needed to be cleaned up as well, just so that it's more definitive of what a pit bull is and how we can deal with it. So both of those bylaws were then put together, and some of the dog park rules are now under a bylaw, or will be under a bylaw.
What are the new dog park rules?
Well, that's a good question, but it is about controlling your animal, what the animal needs to have. They need to be licensed within the city of Steinbach. They need to be managed.
Mm-hmm. We've heard something about more supervision for the dogs, stricter leashing rules. How did you decide on all the various changes being proposed? Like, who did you speak to?
Well, administration does the review, and they also speak to the city's animal control services provider, which is a contractor. We do a review of that, plus we do a review of what other municipalities in Manitoba, what the rules are that they have under the animal control bylaw. So, and what are the expectations? We don't reinvent the wheel, so to speak. We follow suit with what other municipalities are doing and what's working when we talk to other animal control services.
Okay, so can you also maybe outline some of the major revisions?
Yes. We needed to simplify. When we review bylaws, we always want to simplify the structure. And so we'll combine as much of it as we can. One of the areas that I spoke to at council, I was a bit surprised, but apparently that's always been the case, is that if there's a wildlife on your private property, then you're responsible. It's not the city's responsibility to deal with it. If it's a bear, I think then wildlife control officers from the province will arrive and help. But rabbits and small rodents and different skunks, that's your responsibility to deal with. So that's been defined and clarified that it's the sole responsibility of the landowner.
Are there some safety issues, though, with dealing with wildlife yourself on your own property?
I think, if there's safety issues, then it's up to the homeowner to reach out for help. And I'm sure that our animal control services will help you with that. They'll supply traps. They'll supply different things as needed. It's not that you're totally left on your own, but just to clarify where the responsibility lies.
And any other major changes?
Owners of suspected pit bulls. In the former bylaw, it was defined as what a pit bull was. But now we are also asking the owner of a pit bull or a suspected pit bull that they get a veterinarian opinion on the breed rather than rely on different schedules of information that are in the bylaw, right? It could be too restrictive. There could be a combination of various things, various breeds, and so on. So we want more information from that whole aspect. The other thing, too, is to reduce generally the nuisance dog issues. If we've got dogs that are running around Steinbach, how do we deal with that? How do people deal with that? Who do they call? And so then we can, it gives our animal control services more bite to the bylaw. Well, you used unleash.
Yes, that's fair game for sure.
I think another area that's a concern in Steinbach is the feral cats that we can't seem to control. And I don't know if anybody can control cats, but they trying to deal with that issue too, because we do have cats that run around our community and with no ownership attached. This doesn't necessarily deal with that, but it does speak to that.
Okay. And just before we let you go, Jake, the proposed update has passed the first reading. What happens next and when?
A couple of months. It'll go back for review if there's any feedback from the general public or from any further feedback from City Council, and then it'll be enacted in the new year.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Jake.
Thank you.
That was Jake Seaman, City Councillor in Steinbach, in conversation with Emily Brass. You're listening to Radio Noon. It's just coming up to 25 minutes after 12 o'clock. Daniel Aguilar was born and raised in Windsor, Ontario, but he still maintains a strong bond with the Filipino traditions that have passed down to him by his family. Aguilar's favorite is the lanterns people make as Christmas decorations in the Philippines. He showed some of his work to CBC's Jacob Barker.
Christmas lanterns is a ornamental decoration, which is they displayed it in the market, in church, and everywhere. I start building it in 2018 because I just want to share my traditions to the people here. The Christmas lantern represents the Star of Bethlehem that guided the three kings to baby Jesus. It represents hope and love. It connects me to my culture, right? My grandparents, raised me to do, to follow the culture, right? They think about home. They think home, yeah, back home in the Philippines. Yeah. They're happy that I'm passing this tradition to the next generation. It kind of fading away as a way, right?
Why don't you show me what you got there?
Oh yes, I got there. It's a star frame made of bamboo. And I put lights inside, and then I put Christmas plastic wrap. When I'm done with it, I put it there in the hula hoop, and then voila, that's my parole. This is a Christmas lantern, finished product.
How many do you think you've made?
Oh, starting September, I think I made like 30 pieces so far. I got the sticks from Dollarama, right?
And then what do you do? Do you sell them, or do you give them away, or?
I sell them in everywhere, right?
It looks like you have a lot of fun.
Oh yes, very fun, indeed. I enjoy it. This is my passion.
Are you just a super Christmas fan?
Yes, I am a super Christmas fan.
That was Daniel Aguilar showing his Filipino Christmas lanterns to CBC Windsor's Jacob Barker. And you can see a video on this story on the CBC Windsor website and the CBC News app. Okay, we have time to squeeze in a little seasonal music. This is Slow Leaves and Jill Barber. Have yourself a merry little Christmas.
Yourself a merry little Christmas. Let your heart be light. Next year all our troubles will be out of sight.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas. May
Nice local spin on a classic Christmas carol. That was Winnipeg's Slow Leaves featuring Jill Barber with Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. And things are pretty merry or something on the Hill in Ottawa, and we want to hear from you following the sudden last-minute resignation of Liberal Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland. Some Liberal MPs are calling on Trudeau to quit, but should he? What are his options? Give us a call after the 12:30 news. The news is next.
This is CBC News. At 12:30, we're at minus 19 with sunny skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. The Winnipeg Police Board is taking a little longer to choose a new chief for the Winnipeg Police Service. Earlier this month, the Police Board Chair, Marcus Chambers, said a candidate had been chosen, and whoever that was will be made public this month. Today, Chambers says the board has not made a decision. The mayor, Scott Gillingham, who also sits on the board, says the recruitment process is still underway. The new chief will replace Danny Smythe, who headed up the police service from 2016 until this September. A political expert says Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is in a challenging position right now. The calls for him to leave are getting louder from within the Liberal Party. It's been 2 days since the abrupt resignation of Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland. She was perceived as one of Trudeau's closest allies. Paul Thomas, Professor Emeritus of Political Science at the University of Manitoba, says Trudeau may have missed the opportunity to step down gracefully.
He's in an untenable position, it seems to me. He's kind of a political ghost already, and he lacks credibility both domestically and bilaterally with the incoming Trump administration.
Thomas says right now Trudeau has 3 options. He could resign, call an election, or prorogue Parliament and put together a new cabinet with a new agenda. Meanwhile, yes, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump again says he likes the idea of Canada becoming the 51st state, and he claims Canadians support the idea as well. Trump is once again complaining on social media, claiming that the U.S. subsidizes Canada to the tune of $100 million annually. Trump's threatened Canada with a 25% tariff on goods crossing the border if security isn't stepped up, specifically to stop the flow of fentanyl and migrants. And here at home, it's time for Winnipeg homeowners to know your zone. Starting tonight, plows are heading down residential streets. That means you can't be parked on your street. If you are, you'll be ticketed and towed. And if you need a spot to park, the city says it's suspending the snow route parking ban on winter routes for the duration of the ban. The residential parking ban is in effect from tonight at 7 until 7 Saturday morning. And you can find out when plows will be on your street by heading to the city's website or by downloading the Know Your Zone app. And that is your CBC News from Winnipeg. For news anytime, you can head to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba, or you can use the CBC News app.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Back soon.
Good to see you and hear you.
Too.
And now I'm joined in the studio by weather specialist Riley Lachek. Hi, Riley.
On a cold day.
A cold, sunny day.
Yes, cold. Nice to see the sunshine today, albeit a bit colder out there. 20 below in Winnipeg right now. Gimli also at minus 20, minus 21 in both Victoria Beach and Steinbach, minus 26 in Brandon and Thompson, Lynn Lake and Churchill. Both at minus 27. Wind chills in northern Manitoba, Thompson, the Pas, Lynn Lake, Churchill, close to minus 40 on exposed skin. That's frostbite in less than 10 minutes out there this afternoon. Brandon, wind chill minus 36 right now, and close to minus 30 in the Red River Valley. Mostly sunny skies at the moment. We are starting to see a bit of clouds start to build in slowly into western parts of the province. Most of that cloud still off into Saskatchewan. This ahead of our next area of low pressure, which will bring some snow to western sections and a little bit of snow generally to southern Manitoba through the night tonight. So by 10 o'clock this evening, Brandon already into some light snow. Heavier accumulations the further south you go in the province and west. So Melita, the Turtle Mountains, Boissevain, Killarney, looking at some higher accumulations. Brandon up to Russell along the Highway 16 corridor, kind of on the northern edge of the snow as it moves through the province overnight tonight. Moves along the Trans-Canada corridor through the overnight period. Winnipeg, we get grazed by the northern edge of this area of snow as well through the morning hours, tapering off through the afternoon. So by afternoon tomorrow, Brandon already back to a mainly sunny sky. Winnipeg, we keep the cloud cover through the rest of the day, and we start to see a bit more clearing as we head into Friday morning. In terms of accumulations, looking at a general 10 to 15 centimeters in that southwest corner of the province. Kind of draw a line, Brandon south along highway number 10 west to the Saskatchewan border, looking at that 10 to 15 centimeter mark, more like 5 to 10 for places like Morden Winkler, Portage la Prairie, even Austin, and north of that, Dauphin, in a line down along Lake Manitoba to Winnipeg. We're looking at a general 2 to 4, I think more on the 2 centimeter side for Winnipeg, but certainly the further south you go from the city, the higher you can expect in terms of snow. So 2 to 4 for the Red River Valley, more like 4 centimeters into the Emerson area, for example. Minus 19 this afternoon in Winnipeg and Gimli. Mostly sunny skies today. Cloud builds into the west. Minus 21 in Brandon. Dauphin minus 19 this afternoon. Minus 15 tomorrow. Minus 18 for Saturday. Minus 9. A good chance we could see some flurries rolling through in the morning on Saturday in Winnipeg. Minus 7 for Sunday. And I've got Monday at minus 5.
That's pretty balmy, really.
Yeah, jumping up above seasonal as we head toward Christmas.
Yeah, getting a little bit of snow, a little bit of sun. That's nice.
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
Well, thank you for sharing that
You're
with us,
welcome.
Riley. That's weather specialist Riley Lachuk. You can hear him this afternoon on Up to Speed, and of course, you can see him on the CBC News at 6. You're listening to Radio Noon. It is 24 minutes before 1 o'clock. Well, it's been a busy week in Canadian politics, to put it mildly, and it's only Wednesday. On Monday, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland announced her resignation as a cabinet minister. This came on the same day she was set to deliver the fall economic statement. And as we have since learned, the fall fiscal update calls for more than $20 billion in new spending and explains how last year's deficit ballooned to over $60 billion. And now Trudeau is under fire for comments made last night at a Liberal holiday function where he related the current state of the Liberal Party to a family spat over the holidays. The political upheaval has many wondering, should Trudeau stick around or should he go? We want to know what you think about that. Give us a call, 204-780-0893. Or you can text us at 204-588-7855. And here to help guide us through this fascinating conversation is Christopher Adams. He is adjunct professor of political studies at the University of Manitoba. Hello, Christopher.
Hi, Laurie. Nice to be with you today.
Nice to have you. So, what do you make of the political climate right now?
Well, it's pretty crazy. I mean, political commentators such as myself and others that I know of, the phone was ringing off the hook. On Monday, I did 5 media interviews and other political studies folks were doing the same. And so it was a terrifically unpredicted day for many of us. In the back rooms that we knew from Chrystia Freeland that on Friday things fell apart when she was told that she didn't have the confidence of the PM for being Minister of Finance, let alone being Deputy Prime Minister. But it's been a very unpredictable week as well. Marcy Marcusa interviewing Paul Thomas this morning, and that was a snippet on your local news just now, saying that there's no place to go for the PM. Like he either quits or else prorogues Parliament, or else he tries to last for another day in late January. It's doubtful that the NDP would support him in a confidence vote. So it's a terrible situation he's painted himself into.
Yeah, and of course, much discussion, and we want our listeners to give us a call on what they're thinking about, what, and also what's behind this. Give us a call, 204-780-0893, and let us know, should he stay or should he go? And what do you think has led up to this? Of course, we have Chris Adams with the expertise, and this in some ways must be well, not really fun for you, but it certainly, calls on all your experience to try and delve into what's going on.
Yes, and it taps into a number of things. One is the polls. The polls have been showing for over a year that the Liberals are 20 points behind the Conservatives, but also points to the fact that the Prime Minister's office has concentrated power over the past number of decades, more and more so with Justin Trudeau, and Donald Savoy has written extensively on that. And it also taps into political history that this has been the most remarkable thing I've ever seen between a finance minister and the prime minister. The only thing that comes close to it was Paul Martin's severed ties to Jean Chrétien when he was prime minister, and the two had a full-blown falling out with Martin leaving the cabinet. So it taps into political history, taps into polling, and it taps into modern political culture. But I don't know where the Liberals could go from here except to an election.
Well, let's ask some of our listeners and see if they have some ideas for where he could go. We have Jordan on the line. Hi, Jordan. What do you think?
Hi there.
Hi.
I think that's, Trudeau has been in office now for the better part of, probably almost 10 years now. And he's been embroiled left, right, and center in significant ethical scandals. There was the WE scandal. There was the SNC scandal. He's been taking gifts from other foreign leaders that violates ethics codes. Since COVID, he's also divided half the country and bankrupted Canadians through his climate policies, which Canada only contributes about 1.5% globally to emissions, but yet we're taking on the full burden of China, Russia, the United States of America, and every other country that isn't doing anything about their emissions. And I don't really feel like he's had much compassion for us. Chrystia Freeland the other day, Deputy Prime Minister, said that that we should be glad that we can afford a rotisserie chicken from Sobeys. And I feel like that's just kind of tone deaf, to be honest with you.
Well, thank you very much for your call, Jordan. We'll get Christopher to respond. Thank you. So what do you think of Jordan's comments, Christopher?
Well, Jordan is sort of hitting the nail on the head that has really been what turned many Canadians off. David Coletto with Abacus Research just came out with a poll today on Canadians' attitudes towards Trudeau and says only less than 1 out of 5 Canadians think that Trudeau should remain as Prime Minister. So things have gone from bad to worse. And there's a book by Mayer. Mayer's a journalist. He's called The Prince. And the Prince really elaborates a lot of the things that Jordan talks about, some of the scandals, as well as some of the issues on the economy. But, one of the high points of Justin Trudeau's government has been dealing with Trump, and during Trump's first administration, Chrystia Freeland and senior civil servants renegotiating NAFTA in a fairly positive way for Canada, compared to a president who was saying he was going to rip up the whole deal. So now that Chrystia Freeland's gone and we've got a president-elect calling her toxic, it seems that things are completely at disarray in terms of Canada-U.S. negotiations compared to 8 or 9 years ago.
And it's interesting, too, in that Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau go way back. They were in opposition together back in 2013, and they seem to, as you say, supported each other extremely well. And yet her resignation in some ways seemed to come out of the blue, at least to the media. Catherine Cullen from the House used the word gobsmacked to describe how reporters were feeling about it. Now, were there no hints that this was going to happen?
Well, we did know, Laurie, like just reading the Globe and Mail over the weekend, just like in-depth analysis of the falling out between the two and where could Freeland be going from here? Like Monday morning, there was no place to go if she had any self-respect. So I would say that there was a sense that there was disquiet between the two. But, we've seen a number of these big blow-ups of cabinet ministers leaving Justin Trudeau. Jody Wilson-Raybould, remember her? Phil Plott, who walked out. She walked out in support of Jody Wilson-Raybould, and we're seeing this with Chrystia Freeland. So these things seem to suddenly happen in a major way that people are gobsmacked when they occur. And the thing is that these are with women, senior women members of his cabinet. And one of the things that Trudeau takes great pride in is support for visible minorities. And he calls himself quite frequently a feminist, and this seems to be happening with women as senior cabinet ministers. But he did have a strong record very early when he was becoming the leader of the party of bringing in star women candidates, and now we're seeing those star women candidates have a lot of self-respect and won't necessarily always go at the whims of the prime minister.
Oh, that's interesting. Our listeners, we have some lines open. Give us a call, 204-780-0893. What do you think? Should Justin Trudeau step down? What do you think his options are? And what do you think has led to this moment in Canadian politics? 204-780-0893. So, Chris, right now, Trudeau has canceled all interviews with media, including CBC, and is currently taking time to reflect. So what do you think that means?
Well, very much like his father. His father, people think of the walk in the snow. In fact, Pierre Trudeau did 3 walks in the snow. He did one when he was running for the leadership in the late 60s, and he did it after losing in 79 to Joe Clark. And then he went for a walk in the snow at the end of his majority government in about 1983, 84. I'm trying to remember the right year. But that's sort of like what his father did, discerning. It's sort of built in the culture of his father's, I guess, raising his son to sort of think through things. And I would be very surprised if he comes back from his own walk in the snow and says he's staying on as leader. I can't see him staying on. The so-called 23 MPs who signed that letter late in the fall, those people, we didn't know their names. Now we do know their names. They're stepping forward. There are other people who are supporters of him who are now stepping forward, and allies across the floor, like the NDP, are saying quite strongly that it's doubtful that they will support him going forward. So I really can't see him coming out of his period of discernment over the next week or so and saying he's staying on. I just can't see it. So, but he's quite right, to take a bit of time and think about it through and how he wants to communicate it. And he's probably consulting with a few people who can advise him on the best way forward.
Well, let's see what our listeners think. We'll go back to the phones. Well, maybe we should be checking the forecast for Ottawa and regions for snowfalls in the next few days. But in the meantime, let's talk to Jim. Hi, Jim.
Good afternoon and Merry Christmas. I was just wondering, Dr. Adams, what you think Mark Carney might be doing and what his thoughts and changes and where he might have positioned himself might be. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
So thanks, Jim, for that question. Mark Carney, as most people know, Mark Carney was the past governor of the Bank of Canada, and after that, the governor of the Bank of England. And he's come back to Canada. He's being touted as quite a possible successor to Justin Trudeau. I think the fact that he didn't join Trudeau's cabinet over the weekend, the question was, where is Trudeau going with Carney? He was very much being courted by the Prime Minister. The fact that Carney has not announced that he's signing up for Justin Trudeau's government to come in as a cabinet minister and to then run in a by-election, I think it speaks volumes that there isn't that sense that he trusts coming into a situation where the ship is sinking. I think that we will see Carney run for the leadership if the leadership occurs in the next short while, and he'll be up against a number of other candidates. But Carney's stock is quite high within the Liberal government as well as within the media. But I think that he would be walking into a situation where we're likely to lose an election against Pierre Poilievre at this point, if he were to be leader.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder if Michael Ignatieff has anything to say on this subject. But let's stay with the phone lines. We have Brenda on the line. Hi, Brenda.
Hello.
What are you thinking?
I'm not sure that Trudeau should resign. My concern at this point is your guest seems to be basically repeating the talking points we've heard from the Conservatives for a long time. My concern is that those talking points and the propaganda that they have generated have been undermining Trudeau's popularity for quite some time. And we have to be cognizant of the effect of that propaganda, especially with the position of the United States in this. Donald Trump's buddy Elon Musk has clearly stated that he wants to get Trudeau out of power. And, there are moves that Trump is making worldwide to affect the domestic governments that he does not favor. We have to be aware of that, and I think that Trudeau will make the best decision for the country. I think he puts the country first, but I think we all have to take a step back here and think ourselves what is best for our country. Is it getting rid of Trudeau and getting rid of the Liberals and ceding our country to a very conservative party that's aligned with Donald Trump?
Brenda, thank you very much for your thoughts. We'll ask Chris to respond to that. Thank you.
Sure. Well, I appreciate Brenda's comments, but I can tell you I'm not partisan. I'm not a member of any party. I don't toe a party line. I would say that the polling numbers are the polling numbers. You look at the Probe Research poll that came out in Saturday's Free Press shows the Liberals are way down in the numbers in Manitoba, and then Coletto's numbers in Abacus are showing that the Canadians are way down. Brenda is part of the 19%, I think, of Canadians who would like him to stay on as Prime Minister and continue to lead the Liberals. So I would say that there have been ups and downs in the Trudeau administration of our country, and right now clearly it's not talking points by Poilievre, but Poilievre is taking advantage of this moment that the Liberals are down. It's quite clear, and you just have to watch the CBC or Global TV or any of the other news outlets and just sense that things are in disarray, and they exploded apart on Monday.
And I think a lot of people would share your opinion and Brenda's as well, because it just seems to be such a scattergun effect of things happening. We have a couple of texts. In fact, give us a call. We have room on the lines, 204-780-0893, and tell us what you think of the current situation. Should Prime Minister Trudeau stay? Should he go? What are the options? What scenarios do you see? And I want to ask Chris about that in a minute too. But we have a couple of texts I'd like to read. Here's a question for you, Chris. All this is happening with the backdrop of an incoming second Trump presidency. How much does Trudeau's relationship with Trump matter in this discussion, in your opinion?
Well, I think, Trump has had an intense dislike for Justin Trudeau. That was quite clear during the first term of his presidency, and likely will continue into this current one. I think I think that's deepened, but I do know also that when you talk about trade arrangements with the United States, we have to keep in mind it's not just the White House that has to be watched. It's the House, the Congress that has to be watched as well. Also, state level governors and governments are important too for our trade relations. So we do have to think in terms of the relationship between Canada and the U.S. as multi-layered, and not just between federal politicians and federal leaders, but also between the civil service at the different levels. Like when we looked at the FTA agreement, the free trade agreement, and its renegotiation, a lot of that was between civil servants with support from Trudeau's cabinet ministers. But I think it's something complicated that we'll have to be watching. But just the last thing, Laurie, to mention on this is that I think Trump is more seasoned. He'll be more experienced coming into this administration. And if he wants to get something done, he will know better on how to do things this time around that he wants to get done that we might not want to see him getting done. So that's why people are very jittery right now over this incoming president.
Well, and we have several people on the line and lots of questions for you, but we do have a little more room. Give us a call, 204-780-0893, and we will go to Miguel. Hello, Miguel. Miguel, are you there? Oh, maybe not. We have another text. I'll go to this text in between. So the last thing was about Chrystia Freeland. There's been some talk that she's stepped away in order to make a bid herself for the leadership. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think in some ways she was showing some self-respect on Monday, saying that she wasn't going to put forward a financial statement that she didn't agree with. So I think she's been able to distance herself quite a bit. I think there'll be some people in the party who'll be angry at how she did it, that it undercut many of the strategies of the Liberal Party trying to expound. But she has stepped outside of cabinet, but she remains in the Liberal caucus. And so she was quite present at different gatherings on Monday and Tuesday of the Liberal Party as a member of Parliament. So I do see her as quite likely running for the leadership, and I think there'll be other people who will be stepping forward. So one of the names that's being touted is Dominic LeBlanc, who is called like the minister of everything right now, but he has quite a bit of prestige in the party, and he might be touted as the next leader as well.
Well, I have a text here that's really more of a comment, but Eric says, why give credibility to Trump's attacks and attempts to undermine Canada? That's his view. And give us a call if you have an opinion or a suggestion on what Prime Minister Trudeau should do, 204-780-0893. So, Chris, if he, what are the options? I mean, he could stay, he could go. Yeah. How do you see it? And as you say, his advisors are talking to him. Whether he's listening or taking notes, we don't know. But what are how can you lay out the clear options of what might happen?
Yeah, so I think very much like what Paul Thomas was saying, that you could prorogue Parliament. That means the session just stops and all bills waiting to be voted on just stop. Now, the House has risen till later in January, but it's still, the session is still on, even though they aren't sitting physically in the House of Commons. He could prorogue it, which means you start all over again for a new session with a new speech from the throne, a brand new cabinet, because there are a lot of people who left the cabinet. He's got to reshuffle things. You'll have to have a new, a proper finance minister who can focus on the job, not across 3 or 4 federal departments. So that's one option, but I think it's unlikely. The other one is just to call an election, just to go to the Governor General and say, I can't, and maybe there'd be in late January a vote of non-confidence. That means he has to go to the Governor General to have an election called. So there are different options, but one of the options he's thinking about is just hanging on, having a new cabinet, a new speech from the throne, if he prorogues Parliament, and then away you go. But I don't think he would be able to survive that with all the turmoil going on in both within the party and outside.
Well, these are questions for many a day, because there are so many kind of ripple effects that I keep seeing. And also from the sidelines, what are the Conservatives thinking? What are the NDP thinking? For example, let's go to the NDP first. How are they handling all this furor?
Well, they're low in the polls too. They're sitting at around 19% in Canadian support. So they're a bit hesitant to go into an election, and there's talk about their finances not being that great. But they've hitched their wagon to Justin Trudeau for so long. They tore up the agreement. Now it's possible that they have no choice, but they'll vote against the government. The House will fall in late January. I see that as a very possible scenario. And then the NDP will take their lumps for hooking up with Trudeau. They will claim many victories, and they have had many victories in supporting the Liberals, certain programs, and pharmacare being one. So I think they will claim certain victories, but I think they might be punished by the electorate the same way as David Lewis's NDP was in 1974 when they propped up the Pierre Trudeau's government.
Right. Well, Chris, thanks for having such a firm grasp on all the many threads to this story and sharing your expertise with us. And I'm sure we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Laurie. It was fun.
It was fun. Christopher Adams is adjunct professor of political studies at the University of Manitoba. And now I'm joined in studio by Faith Fundel. They are the host of Up to Speed from 3 to 6 every day.
Laurie, we're going to get an update from the Winnipeg Police Service. In the second week of its check stop enforcement, they found 35 impaired drivers. That's 35. We'll get the latest on the second week of that, and we'll also hear from the family of a woman who was killed by a drunk driver, an impaired driver. That story and others coming up on the show this afternoon.
Thank you, Faith. We'll be listening.
Thank you.
That's Faith Fundal. You can hear them this afternoon from 3 to 6 on Up to Speed. You've been listening to Radio Noon. I'm Laurie Hoogstraten. And I'd like just to say thank you very much to the people that put the show on the air. Our technical director today is Dylan Longhurst. Director is Sierra Sanders. Producer Wendy Parker. And our YouTube live stream guru is Kevin Nipatebo. I'm Laurie Hoogstraten, and I'll be back in this chair again tomorrow. Looking forward to chatting with you again. Enjoy the sunshine. Wear your scarf.